I have this book with me that I showed it to Monica McLemore yesterday, and she reads she's one of the smartest people in the world. I don't know if y'all figured that out yet, but I sit there and listen to her talk. I say, oh my God, what could her IQ really be? I'm not sure. Anyway, so when I showed it to her, she was like, of course I have that book. I was like, of course you have this book. But the name of it is Witches, Midwives, and Nurses. Yeah, right. And I was thinking about the two presenters that I saw, Ken and the young woman right before me, and how we were all talking about our ancestral knowledge, right? So what they didn't imagine is that we would become not also physicians, right? So this book could say witches, midwives, nurses, and OBGYNs and pediatricians, right? Because the imagination of what we could become as people of color, as people from the indigenous communities, didn't even imagine that we could do some white supremacist shit too, right? We could, okay? And we could come into it and say, I'm here and I see how it's crazy, and I'm about to disrupt all of this. Because what I understand is my root comes from this space. My root does not come from white supremacy. I'm not, just because I understand it, just because I'm in it and of it, and an OBGYN who trained here and worked at Charity Hospital and did some crazy things that I should not have been allowed to do, because that's what happens when you're working in a system that devalues human beings. That doesn't mean that it ever became a part of me. So when I hear us thinking about the traumas that we're all holding, we're also holding that we're part of systems that were created to harm us, and we've been moving up in them. We're participating in licensures that we know are harmful. Why are we even participating? It's stupid. It's stupid. It's stupid. But yet we're like, we got to do it though, because if we don't get these licenses, then we know it sounds crazy when we're doing it, but we still keep doing it. So I'm going to go through some slides, but if you remember nothing else, I ramble through these slides and say that you are all right. You've been right the whole damn time. You are really right. The truth is y'all. The truth is the reason that we can show up in spaces is because we are of the people. We understand and value people, and I spend a lot of time through my organization trying to get other people who don't value us to value us, and I've gotten to the point that I realize there are some folks who are intentionally harming us and have no interest of ever valuing us and creating systems and structures to keep us back. So we can't waste our time trying to fix them. Let their ancestors gather them. We don't have time for that. Right? So, and to Ken's point, and to y'all's point, we gotta do each other. We gotta hold on to each other. I need all of y'all, and we need some more black OBGYNs, we need some more black everybody. We need some brown, some indigenous, everybody, people who actually value human beings. That's what we need. Okay, so my slides. That was my little intro. If I could find, here it is. All right, did I lose? Okay, yay. Now, to the slides. And I have that, so when I turned 50 last year, my eyesight left. The pandemic took my weight and my eyesight, so I'm just trying to keep going. All right, so objectives. So we're gonna talk about historical context, and discuss the importance of having a reproductive justice framework, and then provide recommendations based upon those. Our organization is now 7 years old. Yay! For the longest time, it was really just, we went from the birthing project to MBEC back in 2015, and we were in this room. We did a birthing project conference right here. Mama Cat, everybody were all here, and it was this real moment of understanding as an OBGYN, my obligation to continue to disrupt systems with the information that I had from the inside, right? So I had been a city medical director, so I understand how crazy when you're trying to get pumps through these other Medicaid, which you're just talking about. Guess what we would have in the city health department? Stacks and stacks of them that we had no ability to give away. Makes no sense. So I would sit there in the meetings like, so you're telling me I got 50 of them over here, but you can't get them into Turo Hospital? You sound stupid. This is stupid. And so I'm arguing with everybody. So yes, so we started right around here, really this combination of both understanding you all actually have the information that we need, and I need to follow you. So why I cried when I saw Jerry is because one of the first things I used to do is try to professionalize doulas. I don't know if she remembers this conversation. One of the things I had access to was people who knew how to make a degree through junior college, and I could create an entire structured program to make a associate degree across the United States for doulas. And I thought, this is the way, because that's what I had to do. Meanwhile, I had lost my whole medical license, fooling around with people who don't care about me, taking care of patients, and calling me, saying I acted like a midwife. So why would I emulate the harm that was done to me on y'all? This sounded crazy. That was my own logic. And Jerry said to me, you should listen to what the doulas want. We're not asking you to give us licensure. And I thought, oh, you show right, Jerry. I'm gonna pull back. I had a whole strategy for how we could operationalize and professionalize. We did argue, and she sat me down. It was a very important moment for me to humble myself. She sat me down and she said, Doc, listen to the doulas. And I was like, yes. And I have not talked about professionalizing our junior colleges since that conversation, right? And there might be some of you in this room who want that. I'm not going to be the person that does it. How about that? I'm not going to use my privilege to get in the way of y'all figuring that out, because really it's a conversation amongst you. It's not for me to even intercede myself into. So thank you, Jerry, for teaching me that lesson. I appreciate you. Yeah. All right. So this slide is actually Dr. Art's slide. Y'all know Dr. Art, right? So he's one of my mentors, and he would always talk about how, as an OBGYN, his obligation is to combine both clinical and social. We learn all this clinical information, but when patients come in, and so how I would modify Dr. Art's interpretation of this slide, for me, is I would give a story of being an OBGYN here in New Orleans. Every day, this is the murder capital of the United States. So imagine that my patient population was also the people who were pregnant, their husbands, their boyfriends, their lovers were being murdered in the streets. So every day, at least once a week, a person would come in and say, Doc, you saw that shooting last night? That was my baby daddy. What am I supposed to say? Take your urine? What is my role in this conversation? I had nothing, physically, nothing to offer. I was trained to have no information. All I could lean on was knowledge from my house. What would my grandmother say? Well, baby, how you doing? How you feeling? That is nothing that I was taught in medical school. That just comes from valuing human life, valuing people. There's no way to sit through a conversation with someone who says to you, the father I'm pregnant with, this baby, was murdered, and I'm now only 4 months pregnant. So you have to, if you are a black person who has if you have not taken the red pill or the blue pill, whichever one, if you are sitting there looking at a person who is struggling and you can't see them as human enough to want to stop and pause and talk to them about the fact that they're now going to have the rest of their pregnancy and that person who used to come with them can't come anymore, then that's how we're trained to say, oh, too bad, I guess, what's your blood pressure today? Right? We have no empathy, no structure for the relation. We assume, through even our home visiting structures, that there is no man. How about that part? But we don't even schedule it around the fact that there could be another human being that loves the person who would like to know when the person's coming into their house. So all of these are devaluation of us as human beings. And so it's hard for me, no matter how much privilege, and I'm pretty privileged. Like, when you look at the level of privilege that I come with, it's pretty high. I'm aware of that. My father's an ophthalmologist, my mother's a pharmacist, my great-grandmother was a midwife, and we've had land and money for a long time. So for black people, I'm about as bougie as one gets, okay? So I'm supposed to look at this person who says their baby daddy got murdered and say, well, he shouldn't have been in them streets. What was he doing? But all I could think is, damn, this keeps happening to people who are loving on each other. They just want to be free. This can't possibly just be about a meritocracy. This can't possibly just be that they're not doing what they're supposed to do. It's too systematic. It's too, so that's why you have to know that there is there is an intention to killing us as well. Just don't ever forget that. It's not just implicit bias. There's an explicit belief in a hierarchy of human value based upon skin color, based upon religion, based upon geography, based upon sexuality. And we've all, and you learn this from the brilliant Dr. I'm losing my Because I keep looking at his face, and I've learned, I know y'all had about, an hour with him yesterday? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah, Dr. Nichols. So I met him in Asheville at a Kellogg conference with, Dr. Christopher, yes. And I remember thinking, this is blowing my mind. To understand how, if you grew up with scarcity, you don't know how to let that go. If it's in your DNA, if it's in your blood, if it's in your, it happens before you even realize you're doing it. You start acting scared of stuff that ain't even there. And if you've never had scarcity, so unfortunately for most of y'all, not only did I not have scarcity generationally, I haven't had scarcity here. So I act free all the time because I've been free all the time, and it freaks people out. I don't know how to be scared. I don't. Because the only thing I'm scared of is, I'm going to be black and die for a long time. So I don't really know what I'm supposed to be scared because you scared? That's on you, baby. That's your scarcity. Don't put your internalized oppressions on me. You keep yours to yourself. I worked a long time to be free. I'm not trying to go back. I ain't trying to go back. But I can feel the nervous energy. And the higher up so many people are inside of our medical profession, they're nervous too. Because the young woman who talked about when you're under-resourced, you got to worry about your McDonald's job. When you're also the one who's holding it down for the entire family. So when I think about my colleague like Dr. Camille Claire, who was here and spoke to y'all, I think, or maybe she's coming later on today. When you're the one black doctor who's the first generation who finished college, guess what? You got to pay Bobo's jail fees. You got to pay the rent for your cousin. I need a financial planner that has cousins because I'm paying for people all across the country every day. I pay for a cousin who's in Dubai who got a rent. Like, this is what we do. I don't have a life where I can just save up half my money. Where? That don't work because we die when that happens, right? So across the entire diaspora of people who have been oppressed, we are also taking care of an entire group of people, an entire group. So we're either doing it because we're doing mutual aid and people are sharing food, or we're doing it because it's the one person that you know can mail you a check or get you out of jail. But none of us are just sitting around like, well, I don't care about nobody. It don't work like that. We don't work like that. So a combined of clinical plus social is how NBEC was started. And so early on, I was able to go to Geneva. So we started in 2015, and I was invited to the Mother House. And I don't even know how I got on the invite list, honestly. Sometimes in my life, I'm like, how did I even get here? And I was sitting there with Willie Parker and Paula Braveman, but also with Fleda Mass Jackson, so all these brilliant scholars who were talking about the fact that Amnesty International and also Sister Song had written this report about that black women were dying in childbirth at 3 to 4 times the rate of their white counterparts. And you know how we do. And what is we gonna do? We have found this information out. What is our strategy? And so we came up with the Black Mamas Matter Alliance. So that was really the birthing of this idea that we had to come together. Oh yeah, Sarah was there, right? We had to come together to really say, we are not going to let this fall apart. We're not going to let the United States hide. If the international community is holding us accountable, then that means we have to also hold ourselves accountable. So I was flown to Geneva the next year, 2016. And that's when I learned about the human rights framework. How many of y'all even really understood a human rights framework? Because I didn't. I truly didn't. Every other high-income country, every single one, believes that at birth, think about this when we're talking about Roe, the next time you hear a conversation about Roe v. Wade, the minute you're born, without you having to prove to anyone that you're valuable, just the moment that your powerful, birthing, divine mother births you, you are fully human and you have all the rights to be loved and valued. That's the whole point of human rights. That's pretty much it. You know what we have in the United States? Civil rights. Civil rights. We beg to be seen as human. We beg to be able to get married. We beg to be able to vote. Right now we're begging to be able to vote again. And people think of the Civil Rights Act as just Martin Luther King. It's been everything. It's right now. Guess what's the Civil Rights Act? Roe. Roe is the Civil Rights Act, right? Anytime we're begging just to be able to control our own bodies, we have been litigating states' rights versus human rights since they lost the war. And when I say they, I mean the Confederacy. We're in the heart of the Confederacy. We got to name it for what it is. I grew up in this place. I'm clear about who and what the Confederacy is. I hope y'all are, because they are still alive. The descendant, they're still running all the companies. They're still in charge. So do not be, you need to be unapologetic in understanding that white supremacy is still clearly in charge. And well, they were. Let me take that back. Now we're in charge. Hope y'all know that. Y'all ready to be in charge? What would you do if you knew you were in charge? What would you do if you knew white supremacy no longer had the power to control the entire world? How powerful are all of y'all? How lean into that power? So just let that thought hold into your head. All for the rest, just what happens if that fear of knowing that a mediocre white dude can't just walk into a meeting and say some dumb stuff and everybody go, oh, that was so smart. How many times did that happen to you? Or they repeat something that you said and they go, wow, did he just repeat? He just repeated, and y'all acting like it's some new stuff. Over and over and over again. How many times? I was with the 500 Scientists, which is a group of white women, and they were just, it was during the Trump era, and they were so distraught about, they were like, what are we gonna do, what are we gonna do? I said, welcome to being a black woman. You're welcome, come sit down and have a seat. So this is how this goes. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep working, because that's what we've been doing. Ain't nobody coming to save you. There ain't nobody ever coming. This is not how this goes. Well, welcome, have a seat. I was like, nobody, I have never envisioned, even though I'm super married, I've been married twice, my husband makes a lot of money, we do well, this has never been about him saving me, right? This idea that I could just stay home and fan away, have my fan like Gone with the Wind. That's their imagination, is that we're here to serve them, that husbands are there to take care of them, and they can sit on the porch and fan and not have to think. Meanwhile, the 500 Scientists, they've been working. These are white women who had PhDs and they're running programs. So they're finally like, why would 53% of us vote for Donald Trump? What is going on? I said, welcome to being a black woman. You need to go home and ask your sister and your mama, why in the world do you think anybody is coming to save you? You've been working all your whole life and ain't nobody ever come. You pay bills. And I said, so we can't live in the delusion. When we are married I can tell you that me and my husband, we share bills. I pay for stuff, he pays for stuff. We don't live a world where I sit and think somebody's gonna come and fan and take care of us. It don't work. I've never been able to do that. And if you ever look at any movie, the black people are always looking at the white folks like this. Y'all think that's gonna work? Right? We got that same look like, okay, if you think so, we gonna be over here. Right? Because that's how we always been looking at y'all, for real. Like, so you think somebody's just gonna come save you and you can fan and then everybody's just gonna show up and take care of you forever? So imagine that is over, that the Confederacy is finally lost. That after years, decades, generations of us trying to figure out what in the world is going on, why they keep showing up as mediocre white men and running the world and having Congress. That's what I said to the 500 the scientists. It was like, so it makes no logical sense that Congress is white men at this point. It should have been white. We should have had Hillary a long time ago. It should have been 10,000 Hillarys. I was like, y'all have out more numbers. You have more everything. What is happening in y'all's houses? Go home and talk to your mamas and your sisters and ask them, why are they waiting for someone to save them? Because this ain't our work to do. We have figured this out for us. So we're like, oh, they caught up. Ain't nobody coming. Right? You got to save yourself. Jesus is just us. It is us. It's always been what we do together. If in Ebonics, there's a whole lecture on we are here to save ourselves. So don't keep waiting for blue-eyed Jesus to come save you. You are here to save yourselves. We collectively save ourselves. All right. So this is the human rights. Well, I was on the next slide. So this is what I used to call, this is our money slide. It might not mean much to you all, but when I'm talking to white audiences, it blows their mind. It physically blows their mind. I'm always like, wow, okay. So I'm gonna try the money slide for you. Race is a social and political construct. It is not real. There is no biological basis of race. We completed the entire Human Genome Project in 2002, which is now 20 years ago. And we have been studied everything from our sizes of our brains to our Achilles heels, every part of human anatomy, they have tried to figure out what makes black people different. Why are Asian people different? I can tell you that I learned in medical school right here at the Louisiana State University that black people have an android pelvis, white people have a gynecoid pelvis, and Asian people have an anthropoid pelvis, which makes no sense. You just learn from the doctor. Why would your bone shape change because you go from a country to country? This makes no sense. And this is how you rationalize higher C-section rates. So you rationalize your racism through medicine. So we have been used over and over again as healthcare providers, as an industry, to rationalize for the world how to harm us. So race does not equal an ethnic group. It does not equal a population. It does not even equal ancestry. My daughter did 23andMe. I refuse to give them people my blood because I don't trust them like that. But, my child is much more open to these kinds of things. She's 29, so, she's in a different space. She's a millennial. I'm an Xer. It's a whole thing happening in our house. But anyway, back to so she did it. And she is, first of all, the funny thing about her dad is New Orleans Creole, or actually Natchitoches Creole, which is real Creole, if y'all don't understand. Like Cane River, okay. So it's like, anyway. So she was so scared that she was majority African descent. Thank God. I was like, woo, it was close though, baby. I wasn't sure. And so I was looking at you. I was like, you don't even tan, baby. But it's cute though. You're cute. You're pretty. So in hers, she is just as much Irish as she is Nigerian. So think about that. If I'm 20% Irish and 20% Nigerian, which part of my genetics makes me want to fight you all the time? Because I'm pretty sure Irish people fight folks all the time. I know, I'm in New Orleans. We got a whole Irish channel that was some fighting. They used to be enslaved and they will cut you people. And Nigerians, come on, any Nigerians in the house? Nigerians get hot with you in a second. And so I will fight. So I was like, you know what? No wonder I get mad all the time. I'm both Irish and Nigerian. So what about my skin color makes you know which part of me is mad at you at the time? Is it my white part? With my, where? Because I will get you when you decide, right? So this idea that my race is something you can look at and then decide all these things about me that are biological make no scientific sense. If we're all scientists, here's the truth. They believed it. They really did believe it. They had a belief in a hierarchy of human value, and they codified it, and they've been trying to prove it over and over again. So when you if you take biology or chemistry, you'll have a theorem. And one of the beautiful things that Dr. Nichols what I heard him say was, the world according to Dr. Nichols. And why that resonated with me is I'm thinking, we live in the world according to the Confederacy, right? So they thought that we're all broken and that they were superior. And they spent all this money building statues and buying off politicians to keep trying to hold on to this theory that whiteness is superior. That there's some biological reason that they're superior. Our brains were smaller, we're closer to apes. Come on, y'all know all this, right? Y'all have to know all this. I can't be the only one that learned all this, right? And so when we finished the Human Genome Project 20 years ago and they proved that there was no biological basis of race, man, I can promise you, the people around here didn't know what to do with that. They have built entire careers, and still, people still fight. You see the AMA fight with my friend Dr. Letha Maybank? About just a basic article, when you put in there that our kidneys have a different excretion rate. How? What part of a genetic, biological thing would make our kidneys, this makes no sense. Like, it's illogical. So it would be melanin somehow gets to your kidney, and you know what's the most racist thing in the world? Vitamin D. Lord have mercy. If I have another thing that vitamin D is gonna fix, it's going to fix COVID, it's going to fix your breast cancer, it's going to fix your ovarian cancer, anything that black people have more of. Instead of just saying racism is killing us, we should all just go get some vitamin. And you know what? You know where vitamin D is? The sun. How about that? Say that part. Yes, so you know where we should be? At a beach. That's where we should be. I don't need a pill or a shot. What we all deserve is fresh air, fresh water, fresh sun. And what I hear when I think about the evolution from Dr. Nichols' conversation is that when you grow up, when you never had to have scarcity and you had sun and water, you didn't have to create all these other technologies. Everything was there for you. So you don't have this feeling of nervousness, of worry, of rush. You're like, I'm gonna get a banana, sir, or a grape. And my wife can get one too. If she's home, it'll be fine. And we're gonna be all right. And that's how we live. So we're always like, If you are always worried about counting and measuring, you don't know how to stop. And then you get to run the world like that? So you've been counting and measuring everybody for generations? I don't have time for this anymore. Like, can we get back to a space where we understand our indigenous roots, the ways of being that we're closer to less scarcity, because we have a whole world that if we didn't blow it up, unless y'all are trying to go with Elon to Mars, he ain't taking y'all though. He's not taking y'all. Did y'all see the movie Don't Look Up? I was freaked out that whole movie because it was my life. I worked and did a bunch of stuff under the Trump administration, and I was like, were they watching us and they made a movie? When they said they were going to skip over the CDC and he was just going to get the data at the White House, I was like, y'all think this is a good idea? Oh God, we're going to all die. We're going to die. We're going to skip an entire federal agency. So I'm on the phone with the CDC and I'm telling them, listen, you guys you need to sue the federal, you need to help, we need to rally the president. He's skipping over you. And they were like, we've just never been accustomed to being politicized. You were created to be politicized. That makes no sense. You might ignore that you're political, but the fact that pregnancy is considered a disease, let's just start with that. You've been politicized since you existed, so don't act like you've never been politicized. You just never knew it, maybe, I don't know. I said, but in repro, we are well aware when governments are trying to kill us. So we have a whole strategy. When the government does it, we have an outside game where we hire lawyers and they sue, and we always win. The first time we haven't won is now with Roe. But there's a whole shell game of Mississippi will make a law, they know it's not going to be constitutional, the lawyers at the big firms get billions of dollars from the state, and guess who suffers? The people of Mississippi. That's who suffers. So let the shell game be over. No more made-up lawsuits, no more big firms getting to make money off of the state. Meanwhile, all we want is free health care, access to a living wage, child care. We're not asking to be puffy. Ain't nobody trying to be billionaires. We just want to live. Can we live? Can we live? All right, so this is really important, and it usually, because people have never had to think about this, I want my grandchildren to be black. Now, I've already told you, my daughter barely made it to blackness on the little genetic thing, right? And she's dated the diaspora of individuals, so I have no way of knowing what they will physically look like. So when I say that, I don't want you to hear me saying that I want them to be like their skin color. I want them to have an orientation for joy. I want them to have an orientation for abundance. I want them not to feel a scarcity. I want them to know jazz and bounce and hip hop and Master P and love all of those things. I want them to do a second line, not because they feel an obligation to, but because they feel that it's a part of who they are. And no matter what their skin color or their hair looks like, that's what I want. So then I say to white people, so do you want your grandchildren to be white? Since we know that whiteness does not mean superiority, what does it mean to you? Go figure that out for yourselves, because that's not for us to do. We got enough on our own plate. So instead of, when we think about the worry about being replaced, you see, we will not be replaced and all that other crap, there's an opportunity for whiteness to figure itself out while we fix the world. So that is the world according to Joia. Whiteness can figure itself out while we fix the rest of the world, because we actually understand, you all more than me, what to do, because you're closest to the problem. So you have a brilliant solutions. You do things like create your home doula collectives. Who knew you could do that and not have to go to a university? Not me. Right? So it's important to lean into your brilliance, to lean into how brilliant and amazing you all are, that you are really the truth. If you hear nothing else, you are the truth. You are the answer. You should be invested in. You should be resourced fully to the max. Every person in here has amazing ideas that have been left out. The only thing you haven't had is the opportunity, the power, and the resource. And that's what we got to do next together.